Hello, grade 11s. It's good to hear from you again. We're going to be moving on to lesson 2. We're going to talk, we talked a little bit about the idea of budgets, just kind of a general overview of what to look for. I know there's quite a lot of notes to look through, but hopefully the homework made sense. Just a reminder to please hand in your homework. I know I haven't set a due date just yet. It's hard to just do a due date every single day and expecting you guys to do the work. So giving you a little bit of flexibility, hoping that you guys are getting the work done. If you have any questions, please use my Skype. I already had a couple students come to me and ask me questions, so I was able to teach one-on-one to them. If you ever want to join the conversation, I already have quite a bit of a group ready to go, so just make sure to contact me and let me know what's going on. So moving on, like I said, to lesson number 2, we're going to be talking about modifying budgets here. Okay, one of the key things about a budget that I've kind of stressed over the last studied videos was that flexibility is very important. Okay, when you're making a budget, it's a future plan. It's not something that you're making that's set in stone. You don't have to worry about not going according to plan. Things tend to change quite a bit. Things like unexpected expenses, which we'll talk about next, is something that can occur to you or to someone maybe you're in a relationship with and you have a dependent. Whatever the case may be, you have to be prepared for all angles here. Okay, so a couple important points that I noticed here relating to unexpected expenses that I'll talk about really quickly. One is that it can happen to anyone. That's number one. And as I mentioned before, you have to be protected. Okay, we talked about savings, right? Having an emergency savings fund is really key in order to combat unexpected things that may occur, as we talked about last class. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over an example of what that might look like. Very similar to the homework that you would have done in the previous class. We're going over another example that looks very similar to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually write it on my notes here just to show you what sort of things we need to highlight here. Okay, so we'll do that now. All right, so let's try example 1 together. I'm going to try and move my camera as much as I can, but bear with me and follow along with the example notes that I do have posted for you as you go. So the important pieces of information you should look for are the ones that you can list in your budgeting. There might be a couple things that we might have to divide, so keep that in mind. But let's read the question and then let's make sure it actually makes sense here. So example 1 says, Sabat shares an apartment with Francis. They split the cost of rent, cable, hydro, water, apartment insurance, and telecommunication bills. Well, we need to keep some information here. There's a couple of important pieces of information. One, that Sabat and Francis are living together. Okay, so there will be things that, as listed before, that they will split. So we want to split, it says here, rent, cable. Get a little bit closer here. So we got rent, cable. We got hydro, water, apartment insurance, and telecommunication bills. So when we're listing our months there, okay, when we're listing our information there, we're going to divide by 2 because there's 2 people. Okay, there's 2 people involved in the payment for those things. Anything else is the responsibility, in this case, of Sabat. So, for example, she buys a bus pass, right? Something in this example here where she buys a bus pass, that's on her own. She's not splitting that with Francis here, okay? So we got to keep in mind all of this information here, okay? We're going to be splitting this apart. For this, we're just going to make sure we list it in our information here, right? So for example, we have bus pass, $56, groceries cost, $210, clothing costs, $50, health insurance, $38.25, personal care, $15.35, entertainment expenses, $15, long distance charges, $6.71. Sabat also has annual expenses, just keep in mind that we're going to divide all of this information by 12. So keep that in mind. So for example, vacation that she spends $900, that's an annual expense. So that's per year. We want to divide that by 12. Okay. Same thing for Cooking Magazine, $28 per year. Well, we want to know the monthly. We need to divide that by 12, and so on. So we have the bolded points. So let's answer the question. So question A says prepare a budget for Shamit for the month of June. So keep in mind she is with Francis in this case. When you do look at the solution next, or as I'm explaining it, please just fill it in on a blank sheet as well, just so you're practicing. It doesn't help just to look at the answers. I'm only doing it based off just explaining it for you as you're doing the homework. All right, so for example one, question A, let's focus part by part. So the first one is, number one is net income. Okay, so how much she's making. Let's focus on her primary income. So her primary income would be the waitressing that she does. Okay, the important piece there is that she's paying a bi-weekly amount here. Okay, so it's not the regular 52 weeks that you see here. Okay, but it's really 26, right? 52 divided by 2, which they do here. You can either just multiply by 26. You should arrive at the same answer. Multiply by how much she makes in that bi-weekly period. Well, the bi-weekly period, if you saw in the information, right, is that she makes $663.19 as her primary income. So her annual income, when you do the math and you multiply, should come to this total of $17,242.94. All right, but she also makes other income. It's not technically a secondary income. Again, I won't be too picky about where you put it in place. Just make sure you label. Make sure you label your information here. So the next source of income that she makes from waitressing are that, well, people make tips as well. So during that bi-weekly amount, she makes about $400 bi-weekly for tips. Okay. The same rules apply. So 52 divided by 2 is also 26. So when you multiply that by 26, this is her annual amount of how much she makes, $10,000 or $10,400. So both of these two amounts need to be added up for your total amount, annual amount, or annual income. So in this case, it should total up to $27,642.94. Okay, so that would be our total amount. Now we want to find the average monthly income. Well, how do we do that? We've practiced that before. What we want to do with this number, okay, we want to divide it by 12, and we should end up at that answer. Okay, dividing by 12, reason why is because we only want to know per month how much she actually makes on her income. Okay, so that's her annual average monthly income. Okay, number 2, we talked about general rule of thumb is that we save about 10%, okay, of average monthly income in this case. So we want to know what 10% of this is. Okay, you should notice something going on here. Okay, they rounded it off to 36, but you should be all you really need to do, okay, is move one decimal place over. Okay, so in this case, I multiply 2,000. Actually, I have it here, 2,303 and 57 cents. We just want to multiply by 10%, okay, or 0.1. It should be the same answer. When you multiply, you should get your monthly savings. All right, that's for number 2. Number 3 now is what we should be listing in our information here. So let's focus first on the stuff that isn't split just yet. So bus pass listed, entertainment you have to list here, personal care, health and disability insurances, clothing, groceries. Okay, all of these things right here are really important to list. Okay, so all you're doing is listing. There's no calculations involved here. So just keep that in mind. The next part now is we have to split certain costs. So in the information, it mentioned here that they split the cost of rent, cable, hydro, water, apartment insurance, and telecommunication bills. Okay, so all of these things that you see here are divided by 2 because there's 2 people living in the house, both Francis and Shebet. So everything needs to be divided by 2 in this case, and you should arrive at your final answer for all of these things here. Same with mortgage and rent. Okay, so mortgage and rent is also split between the 2. So Shebet is only really paying $390. So keep that in mind. Okay, and last but not least, telecommunications. Okay, so telecommunications was combined with long distance, because long distance fees are separate from telephone bills. Typically, you get charged extra for paying for a long distance fee. You have to keep that in mind. Their telecommunication bill was 40, so they split that by 2. They pay 20 each. Okay, on top of the long distance bills that Shebet pays. So we have to add those 2 bills together. Okay, you include, and it's mentioned here too as well, including long distance. So you're at a total in this case of $26.71. Okay, so the next part, you have all your numbers listed correctly. Make sure you calculate and add, and you should end up at an answer of your total monthly expenses at $962.31. Okay. Next part is our annual expenses. All right. So next part, annual expenses. Just keep in mind that annual expenses are for the year. All right. So in this case, home insurance, as mentioned before, was split. If I were to look, yeah. So apartment or home insurance in this case, they are split. So this is the reason why we divide by 2 in this case. Opposed to the other ones, vacation, she pays for herself, newspaper and gym membership, she doesn't split that with Francis, but she does home insurance, which is why you get a total of $250 rather than the total of the $500 annually. Make sure you know that. So once you have all of these totaled, whether you're writing it out on loose leaf or you're writing it in the budget form, whichever way, doesn't matter to me. Make sure, okay, we're looking for the month. We need to divide all these answers by 12. Okay, so 250 divided by 12 should get me $20.83 for the month. 900 for vacations here. She's going somewhere nice maybe. Divided by 12 should get you $75 and so forth. Newspapers, 28. You divide that by 12 should get $2.33 for the month. Once you are finished that part, I want you to add the totals of your monthly amounts. So all of this, I want you to add it, and you should get your total monthly contributions right here. I'm gonna made it ugly. I made it ugly. All right, whatever. So those are your total monthly expenses. Okay, last but not least, okay, we have our final summary here. Okay, our summary basically wraps up everything that we already calculated and know. We just want to input that information again. So in this case, how much she's making in this case, $2,303.57. That's her income. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, everything else here that we listed, so the monthly expenses, the annual amounts, the savings she makes, the monthly amount, monthly expenses, as well as the annual expenses or the monthly contributions, all of these need to be added up together. Okay, in this case, once they are all added up together, you get a total of $1,313.75. For number 5, okay, amount available for other savings or other expenditures. Are we in a deficit? You should answer no. Okay, so no deficit. I'm gonna write that down just for you. No deficit. Okay, so we're in no deficit in this case. We have a surplus or an amount of $989.82 left over. So again, you can do whatever you'd like with that money. You want to rebudget it and put it into other things, more than welcome to. You want to save a little bit more than the 10%, be my guest as well, okay? But this simply means that she is not in a deficit. If I had put brackets here, okay, she would have been in a deficit. And the way you know that is if your expenses are more, in this case, than the income that you make. All right, so example B in this case now gives you the question, after they have a fight Frances decides to move back home. Adjust Sabet's budget accordingly. So this is an example of an unexpected event. So in this case, Frances, they had a fight. The couple had a fight. Whatever happened, he's done with her. He's not living there anymore. Sabet is now responsible for basically all the payments, right? Now she's not splitting anything anymore, right? She's responsible for all of that. So we're not going to be splitting anything by two anymore. So keep that in mind. So what you'll see here is a side-by-side of what she would have been paying with Frances there and what she's paying now, adjusting the budget. Okay, so in this case, budget is flexible, has to be changed because now she's the sole owner of the apartment, of all the payments that are that she's responsible or that they were responsible for initially. So let's make that adjustment now. So what shouldn't change? Okay, well, your net income doesn't change because we didn't use Frances as any sort of source of income in her budget. This is all her own budget here. So none of this changes. She still makes $27,642.94. Her average monthly income is still the exact same. Her monthly savings is exactly the same. So 1 and 2 are the same. What changes now is her expenses. So her monthly and annual expenses are going to change quite dramatically because now she is the sole person. There's no two more. There's no two people. There's no split. So now what she normally would have been paying was $390 with Frances. Now she's paying the whole $780. Okay. Same thing for telecommunications. She would normally pay the $26.71. Now she's paying all of it, $46.71. Okay. The attached amount was the long distance. So the 40 she was paying, or the 20 that she was paying, was the bill plus the long distance she pays for. Okay, the other 20 was from Frances. He didn't do any long distance. So that's why we get $46.71 now. Okay, same thing here. This doesn't split. This stays the same now. $47. Now we got $25. We got $50. What you should be noticing about this is we're multiplying by 2 again to get back how much she's actually going to be paying. Same thing. So clothing is the same. She was responsible for that already. $210. Car maintenance, same thing. All of these stay the same already because she was solely responsible for paying this as it is. So now you can see the splits. So initially, she was paying $962.31 with Frances. Now she's paying $1,433.31. The reason it's not exactly double is because Frances didn't split everything. She was responsible for paying certain things. For example, right, the clothing, the home disability, personal care, entertainment, all of this stuff she already paid for. So that didn't change. What changed were the other things that were shared. So now this is her new amount. So I'm going to underline that. We're going to focus on that. Total monthly expenses. What about the annual expenses she has to pay? Well, same rules apply. So when we look at the split averages here, it says that her home insurance was technically $500. She split that with Frances here, but now she's responsible for that $500. Okay, so that $500 is now her responsibility annually. From a monthly standpoint, now she's responsible for $41.67. Everything else stayed the same. So the $900, the $28, $275, the $75, $233, everything of that stayed the same. She's responsible for paying for that. So now her total monthly contributions, okay, or her updated budget now amounts to $141.92. So when we look at the summary here, this stays the same. This stays the same. This is her income. This is how much she's still saving, that 10%. But now what changes is in the split. So I'm gonna square because we're gonna add these numbers. Okay. So what we want to do with these square numbers is we want to add them all up together. Okay, and then we actually get how much her expenses are. So her new expenses now should be $1,805.59. This was her original with Frances. This is her new. So her new amount of how much she has left over, okay, is $497.98. Again, this isn't bracketed because she is not in a deficit. All I simply did was take this number, how much she makes, and subtract it by the expenses. So when I subtract these two numbers, 2303.57. Remember, we want to subtract the bigger number by the smaller number in this case because it's our deficit. We should know that we're going to be making a surplus, 805.59. So when I subtract these two numbers together, I should get $497.98. All right, so the very last question C asks Sabet, basically, can she afford to continue living in the apartment without Francis? And explain your answer. Well, your explanation will be your budget. Okay, you don't have to write anything new or say anything fancy. You just look at the evidence of your budget. So in this case, we're focusing on this number here. Because it's still positive, regardless of whether Francis is there or not, that means she's still able to afford to live there. That should be your final answer. So Sabet can continue living in the apartment because her budget is still a surplus of $497.98. It might not be the exact amounts or more, or it might not be as much as what she had with Francis, but she's more than comfortable living in the apartment on her own as well. If she was very curious of knowing want to do that. So the next question we're going to do is example 2, but I'm going to ask you to do that one independently. I'm going to flip to example 2 just to explain what I'm looking for. The questions we've sort of talked about already. So example number 2. Okay, I'm going to read the question, and then what I'm going to ask you to do separately is actually practice the question. Okay, example 1 was a means of trying to explain and help you guys out, but I want you to try example 2 as best as you can on your own. And of course, if it doesn't make sense, just give me a Skype call. Likely that day I send it in, so tomorrow, or you can give me a call on Friday as well. I'm not going to be expecting the homework to be done right off the bat, so if any questions, just give me a ring. You know where to call me. All right, so example 2, I'm going to read out for you guys here. Let me pull it up. So the Jiang family, which includes 3 children, is on an August road trip from Portage la Prairie to the East Coast. Hung Jiang earns $56,000 net per year, while Byung John earns $500 net bi-weekly. Their monthly costs include the following. So I shouldn't have to read all of this out. You should be able to see it kind of on your own there. The Jiang family's annual expenses and the monthly expenses are all there. So we have things like mortgage payment, payments for van costs, etc., etc. The key information here, okay, is this. So let's break it down.